A couple's dream vacation turns into a nightmare when a stranger on social media starts sending them chillingly accurate details about their every move, revealing they are being watched far too closely. Alright, let me tell you about the time a simple Facebook post turned what should have been the perfect vacation into a total nightmare. This isn't some ghost story or exaggerated tale, it's real, and it happened to me and my girlfriend Sarah. I haven't shared this story much because it still freaks me out, but people need to hear it. Social media can make your life a little too accessible to the wrong people. So, a couple of years ago, Sarah and I had this dream vacation planned. We were headed to this tropical island, white sand beaches, crystal clear water, the whole 9 yards. We'd been talking about it for months, and like anyone these days, we shared our excitement on Facebook. We'd post little countdowns, pictures of our tickets, stuff like that. You know, the usual. At the time, I thought nothing of it. It was just a way to keep our friends and family updated. We even did a check-in at the airport, posted a photo of us with our passports in hand, and made sure everyone knew we were on our way. The thing is, that's when the weird stuff started happening, but we didn't notice it until much later. When we landed on the island, everything felt like a dream come true. The air was warm, the sun was shining, and Sarah and I couldn't stop smiling. We checked into this amazing resort, and everything seemed perfect. The first night, we went to this fancy beachside restaurant, posted a photo of the sunset, and tagged the location. It didn't even cross my mind that it might be a bad idea. The next day, while we were lounging by the pool, I got this random message on Facebook from someone I didn't recognize. It was just a weird account, no profile picture, just a generic name, something like John Smith. The message said something like, "Looks like you guys are enjoying your time at the beach." I showed it to Sarah, and we both laughed it off. Probably just someone messing around, right? But then, a few hours later, another message came through. This one was different. It said, "The restaurant you went to last night has the best seafood, right?" Now that was strange. I hadn't tagged the restaurant in the post. I had only tagged the general location. How did this person know exactly where we were? I brushed it off, thinking maybe they guessed or something. That night, things started to get creepier. We went to this little local spot for dinner. No check-ins this time. As we were eating, I got another message. This one said, "The food looks good. Hope you guys are enjoying yourselves." It had a winky face emoji at the end. My heart started racing. There was no way anyone could know where we were. We hadn't posted anything, hadn't told anyone. I didn't even have my phone out at dinner. How the hell did this person know? I told Sarah, and we both started to feel uneasy. We decided to head back to the hotel early. On the way back, I kept checking my phone, waiting for another message, but nothing came through. When we got back to our room, we locked the door and tried to brush it off, but both of us were on edge. That night, neither of us slept much. The next morning, I woke up to another message. "Leaving the hotel so early? Must be nice to beat the crowd." My stomach dropped. They knew we had left the hotel. I looked around the room, checking for anything unusual, but nothing seemed out of place. Sarah was starting to panic, and honestly, so was I. We hadn't told anyone our plans for the day, and we definitely didn't post anything online. That's when it hit me. Someone was watching us. They weren't just guessing. They knew exactly where we were and what we were doing. It wasn't random. They had been tracking us since the moment we got to the island. I had no idea how they were doing it, but I knew we needed to get out of there. We went to the front desk and told them what was happening. They didn't seem too concerned, but agreed to move us to a different room on a higher floor. They also suggested we stop using social media for the rest of the trip, which, in hindsight, was obvious, but at the time, it hadn't even crossed my mind. We packed our things and moved to the new room, hoping that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. That night, as we were getting ready for bed, another message popped up on my phone. This time, it was a picture. A picture of Sarah and me standing in the hotel lobby earlier that day. The message said, "New room, huh? Nice view." I felt sick. My hands were shaking as I showed Sarah the message. Someone was right there, in the lobby, watching us, and we had no idea. We decided to cut the trip short. We booked the next flight out of there, packed our bags, and left the hotel without saying a word to anyone. We didn't check in online, didn't post anything. We just wanted to get home. As we were waiting at the airport, I got one last message. It said, "Safe travels. See you next time." To this day, I have no idea who was behind those messages. I blocked the account, changed all my passwords, and locked down my social media. But I still feel like someone out there knows way too much about me. Now I'm way more careful about what I post online. I don't share my location anymore, and I keep my accounts as private as possible, because you never really know who's watching, and sometimes the people behind the screen know way too much. A private housewarming party spirals into a surreal nightmare when uninvited strangers start showing up, claiming to know things about the host and the house that they shouldn't. Alright, let me tell you about the most unsettling party I've ever been to. I've been to my fair share of house parties, but this one still gives me chills. It wasn't some wild, crazy night with too much drinking or drama. It was something much stranger than that. It all started with a Facebook event that should have stayed private. So, this happened a few years back. My friend James had just moved into this awesome house, and naturally, he wanted to throw a housewarming party. Nothing big, just our close group of friends. We were about 15 or so, all people we'd known for years. To keep things simple, James created a private event on Facebook, only inviting the people in our circle. No randoms, no plus ones, just the usual crew. James made sure to keep the details locked down. The address, time, and everything was only visible to the people he invited. He even sent us all a message saying, "Hey, this is low-key, no invites outside the group." We were all on the same page. But as you'll see, things didn't stay that simple. Fast forward to the night of the party. Everything started out great. We were all hanging out, playing some music, having drinks, and catching up. It felt like any other gathering we'd had 100 times before. Around 9 p.m. the doorbell rang. I figured someone was late, maybe stuck in traffic. James went to answer it, and that's when things started to get weird. At the door were two people none of us recognized. A guy and a girl, both in their early 20s, dressed casually like they belonged at any house party. The guy smiled and said, "Hey, is this James's place?" James, being the polite guy he is, nodded but looked confused. "Yeah, it is. Who are you?" The guy grinned and said something like, "Oh, we're friends of a friend." We heard about the party. James looked over at us, probably thinking someone had mentioned it to their friends, but we all just shrugged. None of us had invited anyone else. James hesitated but let them in, figuring it was no big deal. After all, what's a couple of extra people, right? But within the next hour, more strangers started showing up. First, it was a small group of 3, then a few more after that, and they all seemed to know the same thing: the address, the host's name, even little details like the theme of the party and what time it started. By the time the 5th or 6th stranger showed up, we were all getting uncomfortable. James pulled a few of us aside and asked if anyone had leaked the event, maybe posted something on social media, but no one had. The event was private, and we'd all been careful not to share the details outside our group. That's when I started to get a bad feeling. How were these people finding out about the party? I decided to talk to a couple of the strangers, see if I could figure out where they'd heard about the party. I approached one of the girls who had just shown up and casually asked, "Hey, how do you know James?" She gave me this weird smile and said, "Oh, I don't. But I know about him." That sent a chill down my spine. What the hell did that mean? It got worse from there. These strangers weren't just random party crashers. They started acting strange, really strange. One of the guys was standing in the corner, just staring at James the entire time. Another girl kept walking through the house, opening doors like she was looking for something. At one point, one of them walked right up to James and said, "You didn't think you could keep this private, did you?" That's when James snapped. He told everyone who wasn't invited to get out, but here's the creepy part. None of them left. They just stood there, staring at us with these blank, almost knowing expressions. It was like they were in on some joke that we weren't part of. James was getting pissed at this point. He started shouting at them to leave, but they didn't budge. One of the strangers, the guy who'd first arrived, stepped forward and said, "We know more than you think, James. About the house. About you." That's when I knew we needed to get out of there. We grabbed our stuff and left, with James right behind us. As we walked out, I glanced back at the house. The strangers were still inside, milling around like they owned the place. None of us slept well that night. The next morning, James went back to the house. The door was unlocked, but the place was empty. No sign of the strangers, no mess, nothing. It was like they'd never been there. James tried to figure out how they'd found out about the party, but we never got any answers. The event was still private, no one in our group had shared the details, and there were no clues left behind. To this day, we still don't know who they were or what they wanted. The whole thing left us all feeling uneasy. Now, whenever any of us throw a party, we're paranoid about who we invite and what we post online, because once you put something out there, you never really know who's watching or what they might do with that information.